Hi, everyone. This is our group topic, youth vaping, and these are the participants. Everyone, we would like you to meet Seema. She was 18 years old in this photo, and she started college and made the dance team. She was practicing her dances 12 hours weekly on top of attending and studying her classes. She was ambitious and focused. However, by the end of the second semester, she began to feel sick every day, losing her appetite, nauseous, and dizzy. She went to several doctors looking for an answer for her symptoms. She had no past medical history, hospitalizations, surgeries, or relative family history. However, she did vape. She had been vaping ever since she walked into a smoke shop at age 15 and lied about her age without any questions or ID asked. She kept her secret away from her parents, hiding her vapes under her pillows. Over the past year, she was increasing her use to 1 cartridge a day. It became an addiction. She needed to take a puff every 15 minutes. Because her symptoms were worsening, she did mention to the doctor that she did vape, but none of them said that it should be detrimental. On August 15, 2019, Seema was struggling to breathe and her dad rushed her to the ER. She told him, "Go fast, don't let me close my eyes, don't let me fall asleep, or I won't wake up." She described it as death was upon her. The image on the left was similar to her first chest x-ray at the ER. Less than 48 hours, her chest x-ray looked like the one on the right. She was quickly moved to critical care and placed in a medically induced coma and was intubated. The pulmonologists were puzzled at the cause, and Seema kept her vaping secret well from her parents. It wasn't until her cousin exposed her secret, yet possibly saving her life. From the evidence of significant peripheral eosinophilia, patchy ground glass infiltrates, hypoxemia, and a history of vaping, it is most likely that she had an e-cigarette or vaping product use associated lung injury. Seema's mother was shocked and disbelieved that her daughter was smoking every day for the past years without her knowledge. 5 days later, Seema emerged from her coma, and the first words out of her mouth was that "I need a pen and paper." She wrote, "I want to start a no vaping campaign." After being close to death and having her parents witness her in this state, she needed to prevent others going through the same. She needed to know that vaping can kill you.
Because of stories like Seema's, the harmful effects of tobacco products have been well documented and discussed for years. But now these harmful effects are also associated with e-cigarettes. Any use of e-cigarettes by youth is unsafe and includes short and long-term health effects on nearly all body systems, including the brain, lungs, and heart. According to Healthy People 2020, between 2011 and 2019, the number of high school students who were current e-cigarette users increased from 1.5% to 27.5%, or approximately 6 million adolescents. In 2020, the current e-cigarette user decreased to only 24.3%. The National Youth Tobacco Survey of 2021 found that an estimated 34% of high school students had ever used tobacco products. 13.4% for high school students are current tobacco product users, and among them, e-cigarettes were the most commonly used. The most common reason for current use were feelings of anxiousness, stress, or depression. Healthy People 2030 had outlined a list of 9 very specific objectives for adolescent tobacco use. The goal is to decrease the amount of exposure for adolescents and young adults to tobacco products, secondhand smoke, and tobacco product advertisements. We have decided to investigate Service Planning Area 3 in the San Gabriel Valley because this specific region includes 16.4% of teens that have ever used e-cigarettes, which is slightly above the national average of 13.4%. Additionally, 30% of LA County high school students reported ever using e-cigarette products, and 10% of LA County high school students regularly use e-cigarette products.
These alarming statistics, especially amongst high school students, led us to our problem statement. Teenage students need education on the negative effects of vaping because they are heavily influenced by their peers. They view vaping as less harmless than other tobacco products. They view vaping as a way to manage anxiety and are more likely to engage in risky behaviors. We did extensive research and looked at areas that are most affected by vaping. We considered the population, the age, the prevalence, and we found that the most targeted population are young, underserved communities. We decided to focus our project on a high school in Los Angeles, Rosemead High School. We created a needs assessment questionnaire to identify the students' current state of knowledge, interests, and attitude towards vaping. We also partnered with our community leader, Miss Rico, who is a health teacher at Rosemead High School, to learn more about the issues of vaping at their school. Our discussions with Miss Rico brought insight and added a new perspective to the issue. One thing she said that really stuck out to us was that the boys' bathroom across from her classroom is called the Jewel Room. We were shocked by what Ms. Rico had to say about the vaping issue in our high school. We further asked questions about school policy and what happens to students who are found vaping, and she laughed. Ms. Rico stated, "I know it's a problem. Unfortunately, our school is not good at disciplining the problem. Our school likes to bury our heads in the sand and pretend that there's nothing going on." She also noted, "We have lots of policies in place, but we have been slacking since the pandemic hit. They think that kids have been traumatized and need to be cuddled. Kids cannot make an educated decision about their health unless they have an informed information to begin with." This was the perfect opportunity for us to intervene in some way and to educate the students on the effects of vaping. The needs assessment and discussions with Ms. Rico validated the need for our intervention.
Our questionnaire consisted of 28 questions. We received a total of 72 responses. 52% of the class were males, 43% were females, and the majority of students were 14 years old. When asked if students have ever heard of a product called an electronic cigarette, e-cig, or brands such as Juul, 80% replied yes. When asked if students believe the number of vape or smoke shops have increased in their neighborhoods, 43% replied yes. 93% of students believe vape use has increased in the past several years. When describing their exposure to vaping, 17% said they have tried vaping. 11% of students live with someone who vapes. 24% of students have family members who vape, and 21% have friends who use vapes. We took it a step further and asked open-ended questions to better understand our students. For example, we asked them why they started to vape. We got answers such as to release stress and to forget about certain things, to get my mind off of things, to get through my day. A student wrote, "I used it to calm my nerve, but I choose not to quit." We realized from this moment that vaping was a multifactorial problem. Students were surrounded by family and friends that were vaping, and on top of that, stressful environments led them to getting into vaping. We knew we needed to take our presentation a step further and not only educate students on the effects of vaping, but to also provide alternative ways to cope with stress.
After collaborating with the health science teacher and students from Rosemead High School to create our needs assessment, we formed a presentation that would be informative to the students and target why the students are vaping. Due to the pandemic, we had to present over Zoom, but we were able to incorporate elements of interaction with the class by doing the Kahoot pre and post survey and a mentee presentation. We used plain language throughout the presentation to promote basic education and transparency. Our focus was to be informative yet also interactive. We first started with a Kahoot pre-survey to measure the students' knowledge prior to the presentation by asking a set of questions based on our objectives, which we extrapolated from our needs assessment. We then asked the students to participate in a mentee to gauge their attitudes towards vaping. We asked them for a few words that come to mind when thinking about vaping. These were some of the words that the students came up with: harmful, unhealthy, depression, nicotine, bad, and addictive. In other classes, students wrote stress relief and coping. During our presentation, we discussed tobacco advertising and presented facts based on our research on how vaping affects teens. We used phrases such as people your age to make it more impactful for them. Additionally, one of the findings of last year's similar presentation was that more students thought vaping was not risky. We wanted to really stress the detrimental effects of vaping. We decided to use graphic images in part of our presentation, as you can see from one of our slides here. Our goal was to catch the attention of our audience and highlight the reality of the short and long-term consequences of vaping.
In our needs assessment, many students mentioned that they vape to help cope with stress and that they believe that vaping can help them relax and overall manage their stress. We presented on the common myth that quitting vaping products can worsen mental health conditions and provided a list of healthy ways to cope with their stress. We also provided several vape quitting resources that were youth-friendly, including apps, text-based support, and social media accounts. There was an overall improvement from pre to post survey results amongst all 3 class interventions. We asked, how do vaping companies target young teens? And 97% of students were able to correctly choose after the presentation. 94% of students correctly answered in the post survey that vaping affects the heart, brain, and lungs. And 91% of students identified the short-term effects of vaping, including blood pressure increase, the increase of heart rate, nausea, vomiting, cough, and shortness of breath. 88% of students correctly identified the long-term effects of vaping in the post survey as an increased risk of heart disease. And overall, we had 79 responses in the post survey saying that vaping was perceived to be extremely harmful. Our confidence levels dramatically increased from 42 to 79 responses claiming very confident in the post survey.
Our first objective for the presentation was for 75% of students to have increased confidence and knowledge of vaping. We did not meet this objective as we have a confidence increase of 49% of students after our presentation, but that was due to a good foundation of knowledge at our pre-survey. After the presentation, 88% of students were able to correctly identify the short and long-term effects, meeting our objective. We asked the students to identify 3 harmful chemicals found in e-cigarettes, which 93% of students were able to do, so we met our objective. We identified several coping strategies for stress instead of using vaping products. We started a discussion with the students who brainstormed their own healthy ways to cope with stress, including listening to music, talking with friends, exercising, and meditating. This objective was met through our discussion. We made a list of healthy ways to cope with stress. Peers have a significant impact on each other's behavior at this age, so we discussed it is a great idea to be with friends who support you during the quitting process. We also listed symptoms of nicotine withdrawal to show how they can be confused with worsening of mental health conditions. We hope that by discussing these symptoms, we could show them what they can expect to feel, prepare for it with good social support, and provide reassurance as they go through this process or support a loved one who is quitting. We wanted to avoid shaming, as quitting can be a lifelong process, and your support team, including your healthcare provider, is there to encourage you each step of the way. We wanted to empower students with this knowledge and inform them to make their own health decisions. We kept our presentation at a 6th grade reading level, simply defined all medical terms and provided information without shaming or judging. The students we presented to came from diverse backgrounds, and we thought it was valuable to discuss how tobacco use is a social justice issue. Certain racial groups have been targeted by tobacco companies, and this contributes to disproportionate use in communities of color. We wanted to empower students to use this knowledge to be advocates as our country addresses systemic inequalities. We practice trauma-informed care by giving students a trigger warning before showing graphic images of the harmful effects of vaping that some may find disturbing, as we recognize that it is very difficult to see other people so ill and injured.
Some barriers experienced during the presentation were that students had their cameras off on Zoom, so it was difficult to determine their reaction and comprehension of the material. Also, some class periods were shorter than others, which limited the discussion time. Another barrier is that we did not have full participation on surveys from students. 94 students responded in the pre-survey and only 85 students responded in the post-survey. Solutions include encouraging students to ask questions and include more discussion questions, selecting longer class period to present, considering a poster survey months after the presentation to assess the knowledge and behavioral changes, and using a platform other than Kahoot that hides the correct answer may help. Additionally, removing all the above options could allow to better assess their knowledge. In conclusion, we had good teamwork and good time management. Students had good participation in our discussion during the presentation. In addition, we had good class engagement. Most people participated in Kahoot and Menti activity. We were also successful in increasing student confidence about vaping knowledge. We wish all students participated in post-survey like they did in the pre-survey. Our call to action is to enforce the effect of vaping and to connect high school students and consumers with resources to cope with stress and quitting, and allow them to take the initiative to change the growing issue of teenage vaping by educating their peers about vaping consequences. For providers, we encourage educating consumers and to stay up to date about vaping, screen patients, and promote healthy choices. Here are references. Thank you for your time.